Okay, so today we are going to discuss para and por, the two words that mean for in Spanish, and the reasons why they're used. So please be aware that the examples that you see on this presentation here are going to be the same as the examples on your paper. However, you're going to have to listen so that you can write down why each example is being used. So let's get started. Empezamos. So, for example, we use para for the following things. And be aware that for this first section here, and you can see on the left of your paper, para is going to be translated as for. It's just that it's used for different reasons. It's used to mean for different reasons. So we have our first example, Marcos trabaja para Stop and Shop. We use para here to say for whom someone works. El boleto de avión es un regalo para ti. We use para here because we're talking about for whom something is intended. So the plane ticket is a gift for you. El autobús salió para el centro a las 10. The bus left for the center of town, at 10. In this case, we use para to talk about a destination. The bus left for the destination of the center of town at 10. Los estudiantes estudiaron mucho para el examen intermedio. We're using para here because, believe it or not, even though the event in question is el examen intermedio, we're talking about a thing or event. So you're doing something, to prepare yourself for a thing that's coming up or for an event. And in this case, that midterm exam would be an event. We also have para mi hijo, el estadio Gillette es un sitio fascinante. So that would be an opinion or point of view. So in my child's opinion, for my son, for my child, Gillette Stadium is a fascinating place, a fascinating site. And finally, el Museo de Ciencias en Boston es muy pequeño para una persona de Chicago. The Museum of Science in Boston is very small for a person from Chicago. We also have a couple of other uses of the word para here. The first one is by, and this has to do with a deadline. So necesito tomar los apuntes para el jueves. This would be translated as I need to take the notes by Thursday. So in this case, para is used for a deadline. And finally, the last way we use para, and it's one that we use fairly often, is to say in order to. Nosotros tomamos un avión para ir al DF, so al Distrito Federal, and los estudiantes tienen que hacer la tarea para sacar buenas notas. In this case, the reason for using it is quite something going to be in order to. It's the translation is going to be in order to. We take a plane to go to the DF, or in order to go to the DF, and the students have to do the homework in order to get good grades. Buenas notas is good grades. With that said, we are going to move on to our notes for por. And so por is a little more detailed here, but you'll all get this, okay? So when we use por to say for, we're using it for these reasons. Unos estudiantes van a Costa Rica por una semana. So some students go to Costa Rica for a week. We're using por here to talk about the amount of time or duration of time for which people are doing something. Yo compré los boletos de avión por 300, there's a typo there, to be $300. So I bought the plane tickets for $300 in exchange for $300. So it's an exchange of money for goods. You paid the $300 in exchange for the plane tickets. And I will make the typo correction on the skeletal notes before I print them out for you. So I'll do that as soon as I'm done filming this. Also, it can be used to mean because, really or not. Gracias por invitarme. We do say, for example, honestly, thank you for inviting me, but it's really thank you because you invited me. Por can also be used to mean by. So, el rascacielos fue destruido por un terremoto. The skyscraper was destroyed by an earthquake. So in this case, it literally is just by, a very literal translation there. Viamos a Boston por tren. In this case, we go to Boston by train. So when we're saying by and we're talking about a mode of transportation, we need to use por. So we're using por in the second example, vamos a Boston por tren, because it's a mode of transportation. We also use por to say around or through. So our first example here, entró alguien por la puerta. Did someone enter through the door? That is your first example, okay? And for the second two, you could honestly interchange around or through depending on how you read it. Los turistas caminan por la ciudad y hay muchos peatones caminando por el parque. The tourists walk around or through the city, and there are a lot of pedestrians, peatones are pedestrians, caminando por el parque, walking through the park. Finally, the final reasons for using por, we have because of or on behalf of. So we could say, for example, la maestra está preocupada por las malas notas de los estudiantes. The teacher is worried because of the bad grades of her students, or of these students. And finally, la madre habla al médico por su hijo joven. The mom speaks to the doctor on behalf of her young child. So now that we've got this done, what we're going to do is we're going to work a little bit with Nueva York, Nueva Vida, the story that we read recently, written by one of my former students, Sivana. And so what's going to happen is you're going to look at and listen to the summary of the story that we read, complete the story with para or por according to what you see in here. And after that, you want to think about the reason why por or para is used and write it. And so depending on how we do this, we will either go over this as a group in class, or I will check over your work individually, depending on, where we all are and how we go through this. It might vary by class. But what you're going to do is you're going to read the story and listen. And the first 2 pages are going to be examples. So I'll go over those with you. And then starting on the 3rd page, you're going to be a little more on your own. You're going to have to write down por or para, whichever you see or hear that fits in the blanks. And then do your best on the separate line below the printed sentences in your notes packet to figure out why por or para is used. So our first page, which is an example, un ejemplo, we start off by saying, en este cuento leímos la historia del día en que Ramón salió de Puerto Rico para el estado de Nueva York. And you notice para is a little bold-faced here, and the reason why it's being used is it's a destination. Página 2. En el cuento, la familia de Ramón viajó por avión para ir a la ciudad de Nueva York. So we have por here because the train is the mode of transportation. The plane, lo siento, is the mode of transportation. Para ir, in order to go to New York City. So now on page 3, you're going to be a bit more on your own. I would advise you to pause the video as you need time to, think things through. If it's going to be better for you to pause, restart, do that. If you'd rather get down the paras and the pors and then go back and figure out your reasoning, then that's fine as well. Do it in the way that's going to work best for you. So número 3. Al principio del cuento, la mamá de Ramón dijo que tenía que despertarse para desayunar. 4. Ramón estaba sorprendido y triste al saber que su familia iba a viajar para los Estados Unidos. Número 5. Ellos pasaron por el control de seguridad, lo siento. Ellos pasaron por el control de seguridad antes de ir a la puerta del embarque. Número 6. Antes de abordar el avión, la familia esperó en el aeropuerto por muchas horas. Número 7. Después de llegar, la familia pasó un rato caminando por la ciudad de Nueva York para explorar. Número 8. Ellos no se quedaron en la ciudad de Nueva York. Viajaron por carro para ir a la ciudad más pequeña de Rochester, que está al oeste. Al noroeste de veras, pero al oeste. Número 9. Al llegar a Rochester, Ramón miró el apartamento que sus padres encontraron para su familia. Él estaba agradecido por el apartamento. Y finalmente, al final del cuento, Ramón comenta que su familia vino a los Estados Unidos por buenas razones, para poder tener nuevas oportunidades. Muchas gracias por su atención, and we will make sure to continue practicing with this in class. Adiós.